So what's going on, y'all? It's the Boy Vincent, repping the Boy Vincent Fitness. We're back again today with another YouTube video. And the topic of today is going to be, do not compare yourselves to others. Now, guys, this is something that me personally, I was at least very, very guilty of doing this back when I was like in my 20s, especially like mid 20s. Because, as I do bodybuilding, as a hobby. But one of the biggest problems with bodybuilding is a lot of the times it's all based on comparisons. So let's say you were to see someone like, let's say Ronnie Coleman. You just see Ronnie Coleman on the street, you would think, oh my God, this guy's incredible. He looks amazing. But let's say this was Ronnie Coleman near the end of his career when he was kind of coming in off. He's obviously just out of shape because he's older. He did what he needed to do. But then most people on the street would see him and think, man, he looks incredible, he looks amazing. But for me, I have a trained eye. You would think, okay, he's kind of past his prime. He's on the downside of his career. This is kind of the issue with bodybuilding in a sense. The only way you would know this, you would have to stand him next to someone else. So let's say you put him next to Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler beats him in the competition. And this is kind of the biggest issue that I had with bodybuilding, especially in the beginning, because I would always sit here and try to compare myself to other people and think, okay, what can I improve with my body? How can I get better? Blah, blah, blah. When in reality, guys, the only person you compare yourself to is yourself, who you were before. And it's kind of difficult to do this because of social media, but guys, I can sit here and say this right now. Social media, dog, it's all cap. It's so much BS on this app, guys. Most of this stuff it's just not real. Not everything, but most of what you see on this app it's fake on social media in general. So for example, you see when I so for example, before I moved over here to Europe, I used to travel. I used to follow a lot of like European influencers, and you would notice like, man, they travel so much, they get to see so much. But now, after me living here, and understanding the fact that at the time, I couldn't travel, but most importantly is after me living here, you understand, okay, it's pretty easy to travel here because everything is very close. Europe, in general, is really small. So, for example, Germany's population, I think, is like 33 million or something like that. It's very small. So, for example, from where I live in North Germany. So, for me to get to Berlin, for example, it's only 3 hours away with a train. By car, maybe 2.5. Guys, that's from I'm from Florida, so let's say Fort Lauderdale to Orlando is 3 hours. So let's put that in perspective. So obviously people here travel a lot more because everything is very close. So for me, for example, if I were to go to London, the flight's I think 50 minutes from where I live. And we have direct flights from where I live directly to Stansted Airport. And you can get to London very easily. So if I were to not know this and I was living back in the US and I'm comparing myself to these people overseas, yeah, obviously you're going to think, man, they're having such a blast. My life is not as fun. I'm only here in Florida, because you're comparing yourself, but you don't understand the whole picture. You don't understand the whole scope. And I say this because one of the biggest things you can do to rob yourself of your joy, of your pride, of your accomplishments is to compare yourselves with others. I see these guys at the gym all the time. Guys, I'm a pretty big guy. We're like I think like 225, 227. And I'm not very tall. I'm only 5'10", so it looks better on me. And luckily, I have great insertions. So I'll see guys at the gym comparing themselves to me, asking how much I weigh and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been working out consistently since I was 21. I'm about to be 32 this year, guys. So over 10 years now. Over 10 years I've been working out consistently, bulking, cutting, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, at least in the gym 5 times a week, and sticking to a pretty relatively strict diet. So for me, obviously I look a certain way because I've been doing this much longer than most people. But when you have someone who's 22 or 23 years old comparing themselves to me, it's stupid. It's foolish. And I always try to tell them, hey guys, do not compare yourself to people. Don't do that, because you don't see how much time and effort it takes to get to a certain point or a certain level. And that's what I want you guys to really understand. Do not compare yourselves to people, guys. You don't know their struggle. You don't understand what they went through, and you're still on your way up. As long as you stay focused, you stay motivated, and most importantly, you just stay dedicated. You just keep pushing towards what you want to do. Because even with, let's say for another example, like with rap, there's certain rappers that didn't blow up till they were pretty old. Like you look at 2 Chainz. 2 Chainz didn't really blow up until he was much later in his career. Like 2 Chainz didn't really pop off until like 2000, like when I was in college, so like 2012, 2011. That was when 2 Chainz really started blowing up but at the time he was kind of old. He was in his late 30s, probably in his 40s now. Same with Freddie Gibbs. Like I listen to a lot of Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs is in his 40s. Freddie Gibbs didn't really blow up until maybe, let's say, 5, 6 years ago. And he had a lot of old mixtapes that, I can go on Spotify, you go on YouTube and you listen to it like, man, it was fire. But he didn't really blow up till much, much later. But let's say you were to be Freddie Gibbs and you're comparing yourselves to other rappers, and you're like, man, this dude's only 20 or 19 and he's already blowing up, and I'm over here still struggling. I got good quality music. But eventually your time will come if you're putting out good stuff. Or at least, you're working hard to the point where eventually that opportunity will arrive or present itself to you. So you can't. It's foolish to compare yourselves to other people, guys. It's very dumb. It's almost like looking back, I almost feel like kind of dumb at myself for doing it, because I used to always be comparing myself to some of these guys on Instagram and like, man, I don't look that good. Why don't I look that good? But in reality, I was still on my way up. I didn't see how long it took someone like a Simeon Panda or Ulysses to build their bodies up. It probably took them much longer. And back then, there was no internet, so it was probably a lot harder for them because they didn't have as much information. Now you can go on YouTube and learn how to freaking diet and exercise, or you could hire me as your coach, NavoyVincentFitness.com. But it wouldn't have been as easy to find a coach because you didn't have social media back then, or at least way back then. So obviously, for them, certain aspects were more difficult. For us, it's a little bit easier. So I can use social media to promote my business. And just from that little tangent that I just kind of went on, I just explained to you right then and there. On certain aspects, they had it easier, but on certain aspects, we have it easier. And that's what I want you to understand, guys. You can sit there and compare yourselves to this person, but you never know what they was going through, what problems they had. They might have deaths in their families, breakups, all these different things. But guys, you really got to understand, do not compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself on who you were yesterday. So if you can honestly say you're better than what you were yesterday, that's a win in my book. So that's all I got to say today, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Make sure to never forget, always remember that, you make sure to control the negative, focus on the positive. It's your boy, Navoy, repping Navoy Vincent Fitness. I'm out.